I've been a huge Ghostbusters fan ever since I was a kid with the real Ghostbusters Saturday cartoon, the original Ghostbusters movie, a few Ghostbusters games, including my favorite, this one. Love this game. Played through it at least twice on the channel now. And obviously, a few years ago, whenever Afterlife came out, I was very excited to go watch it. And I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping, but it was okay. It was better than 2016. And that's all I'm going to refer to that other movie as is 2016. So back in March, Frozen Empire came out, and I had no real interest in watching it. I just wasn't really feeling it. But I said that whenever it did become available via streaming, I would watch it and do a review, and at the same time also rank Frozen Empire with almost everything else Ghostbusters wise. I'm not going to include Spirits Unleashed. I know that that's still getting live service content. I haven't played Spirits Unleashed, so I'm not going to include it on my list when it comes to ranking the movies and, of course, the real Ghostbusters. I know there's been other Ghostbusters series, but I'm only going to rank the real Ghostbusters along with the video game. So this will be in the ranking as well. So I guess what we'll do first is we'll talk about Frozen Empire, non-spoiler, which will be really quick, and then I'll dive into spoilers, and then after the spoilers, then I will do the ranking, which doesn't really make too much sense if you want to avoid spoilers, but I'm guessing that most of you have either watched Frozen Empire at this point, because it's now on Netflix, by the way, or you don't care to be spoiled. And if that's the case, then I guess that's good. And by the way, let me know your favorite Ghostbusters movie. I'm sure it's probably the first one. How could it not be the first one? By the way, the most favorite movie that I have of all time is Ghostbusters, so that's where I'm putting Ghostbusters, the original movie, at the top of the firehouse. It is not only my favorite Ghostbusters film, it's also my favorite film of all time. But we'll talk more about that later. Let's discuss Frozen Empire, which is the sequel to Afterlife. I think it takes place, 3 years after the events of Afterlife. The quote-unquote Spangler family has relocated to New York. Winston has brought back the Ghostbusters, the firehouse, and of course they've been busting ghosts for 3 years until things start to happen. So, non-spoilers, I thought this was an okay movie. It is far from the best Ghostbusters movie of all time. I didn't expect it to get up there with the OG Ghostbusters film. It's definitely not as good as Ghostbusters 2, and I would say that Afterlife is better than Frozen Empire. So that's where I'm going to be putting Frozen Empire. So Frozen Empire is right below Afterlife. It's definitely better than 2016. So I guess right now we'll just go ahead and do the ranking, and then we can go into spoiling. That way, for those of you that care about my ranking, you can just see that and then move on. All right, so at the top of the firehouse, number 1 is Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters 2 is second. Now, this part I'm still debating in my head for third place. Do I want to put the real Ghostbusters cartoon series, or do I want to put the Ghostbusters video game? Because there was definitely good episodes in the real Ghostbusters, and there was also some bad ones, and it did go on for a quick minute. So I think I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to put Ghostbusters, the video game, in number 3. Because up until Afterlife, I considered this to be the third film in the Ghostbusters trilogy, because it includes Harold Ramis, the late Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, you had Ernie Hudson, you had Annie Potts, William Atherton even came back as Peck, and of course Bill Murray, who showed up for a few minutes to do some voice work, and I think he had some sort of issues behind the scene. What else is new when it comes to Bill Murray? But yeah, I consider this to be my third favorite in the ranking when it comes to Ghostbusters. So yeah, I still think this is better than Afterlife and way better than Frozen Empire, and like way higher than the 2016 film. By the way, the 2016 film is down in the River of Slime. That's where it lies. but above that is Frozen Empire, and above that is Afterlife. So that's where I rank the Ghostbuster IPs that I'm going to include. Once again, I'm not going to include Extreme Ghostbusters. I never really watched it. I'm not going to include Spirits Unleashed because I haven't played it, and all the other Ghostbuster games. I think I played a Ghostbusters game back when I was a kid on the Super Nintendo. I think it was Ghostbusters 2. It was okay, but it was basically the video game version of the Ghostbusters 2 film. It was okay, but that doesn't get included. So yeah, that's where I rank Frozen Empire with the rest of the Ghostbusters franchise that I am including, because I want to get the non-spoiler out of the way for Frozen Empire. So you pretty much get an idea of where I am and why do I feel this way about Frozen Empire. I think that the big problem that Frozen Empire has is too many characters. There's the original characters, which I'm glad they gave us more time with Winston and Ray and Janine. I feel like Janine needed more time too. Like, I felt like she was kind of there, and it's unfortunate because I do like Janine. I like Annie Potts. It was cool to see her come back, for both Afterlife and Frozen Empire. Bill Murray got more cameo spots than I thought. I mean, I didn't expect to see Venkman as much as I did because I thought that it would just be similar to Afterlife where he would just show up at the very end. But there was a part somewhere in the movie where Venkman does play a role, and then he comes back in the end of the movie once again. So I guess credit to Bill Murray for doing a little bit more this time. So yeah, I like the fact they brought back most of the OG characters. Sadly, Harold Ramis did pass away some time ago, so he can't come back. And they wrapped up Egon's story with Afterlife, and they continue the Spangler family going forward. It's a shame we don't get Rick Moranis. He's still, I guess, he's content with a private life, even though his kids, I think they're grown up now, because sadly his wife passed away years ago, and he got out of movies and Hollywood just so he could focus on raising his kids. So credit to Rick for that. But it would have been nice to see Lewis come back. Maybe in the next movie, maybe they'll finally talk Rick Moranis into coming back. I know they're working on a Spaceballs movie, and I can't envision them doing a Spaceballs movie without Rick Moranis as Dark Helmet. So no Rick Moranis, I'm not watching it. Because, John Goodman is long gone. Barf is not there. Or they just can bring back Lone Star, and that's it. Because Joan Rivers, Joan Rivers has also passed away. So, yeah, I have no interest in the next Spaceballs movie, but that's off topic. So, anyways, the returning characters from Afterlife, I think that several of them didn't need to continue. I think their stories could have just been left off to the side. They also mix in some new characters, which are okay for the most part, but when you have so many characters, you're kind of limiting the amount of time you get to spend on each of these characters. And even though there are moments, it just feels like there were parts that could have been fleshed out a little bit more. And I wasn't really a fan of the main antagonist. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And there's just some other things that I took issue with. But overall, I do like one thing. I like the fact that this is a small spoiler at the very beginning, is that they actually acknowledge Ghostbusters 2. So Ghostbusters 2 is canon, because there was a lot of debate about that in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Like, were they going to consider Ghostbusters 2 to be canon? Were they going to do like Halloween and say, Halloween 2, Halloween 4 and 5, and Curse of Michael Myers never happened? By the way, I did do a Halloween video a while back if you're interested. So I'm glad that at the very least Ghostbusters 2 has been acknowledged in Frozen Empire, which means there are technically 4 films in this franchise: Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2, Afterlife, and Frozen Empire. So that's definitely a pro. And the fact we had some more time with the OG characters. And I felt like that Ray and Phoebe definitely had some really good moments together, so that was a positive. And I love the fact they gave Winston more time, as well as a bit of time for Venkman and Janine, even though I do feel like Janine should have been fleshed out a bit more. I'll talk a bit about that as well, what I think they should have done with Janine in Afterlife, and I feel like that's a missed opportunity. But since they include Ghostbusters 2 as canon, that might make it a little tricky to accomplish. But anyways, overall, it wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a great movie. And I guess it's a very tall order because, like I said, in my opinion, the original Ghostbusters is, to me, the best movie of all time. It's funny. It's scary. It's got great music. It's got great characters, an awesome story arc, and the score is amazing. And even for its time, like in the 80s, the special effects for the most part still hold up to this day. So it's a very, very solid film. And I'll die on that hill saying that Ghostbusters is my favorite film of all time. So yeah, obviously Frozen Empire doesn't even come close to the original. It doesn't come close to 2. And Afterlife, I feel like, is the better of the 2 new Ghostbuster films. But it's still better than 2016. So that's pretty much where I put Frozen Empire. Now let's talk spoilers. This is where I'm going to ramble about some things that happened in the movie. And once again, talk about things I liked, things I didn't like. So if you want to see me ramble, feel free and stick around and let me know your thoughts, views, and opinions regarding Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. By the way, now available on Netflix for you to check out if you missed it when it released back in March. And let me know what your favorite Ghostbusters film of all time is and what's your least favorite. Hopefully it's 2016. Okay, so spoilers. What did I not like about Frozen Empire? Once again, I feel like there were too many characters. I think that the Stranger Things kid, his name's Trevor in the movie. I think Trevor, Lucky, and Podcast should have been left in Oklahoma. I don't really think they were really necessary to this film. Like, they could have mentioned them and say, hey, I hope Trevor's doing well with Lucky and Podcast in Oklahoma. Like, I would probably have done that. I would have also tried to do a better job with Paul Rudd's character and Phoebe's mom, because like they're supposed to be in a relationship, but at times it really didn't feel like they were in a relationship. It just felt like they were just hanging out together, working together. And I think that they could have built that up a little bit better. And I go back and forth about whether or not the mom should be in the film, but I kind of get the mom still being in the film because Phoebe is, I think she's only 15 in Frozen Empire. Like Trevor, he's 18. He's an adult now. So just say he's at Oklahoma State with, or whichever Oklahoma college you want to put him at with Lucky, and they're just off in college, along with Podcast, having a good time back in OK. But yeah, I just think that there were too many characters. And so there's another thing that I have issue with is that we still don't know about Spengler's, baby mama, his wife. They never really mention it in Afterlife or Frozen Empire because obviously Phoebe's mom had to come from somewhere. We know that her dad is Egon. We still don't know who the mom was. And that's why I feel like it was a missed opportunity in Afterlife to just establish that Janine was the mom. Now, Janine is not the mom, and I think that if they tried to do that in the next Ghostbusters movie, it would feel pathetic. It would feel like them trying to do like a Darth Vader twist that really wouldn't work. But if they just established that Janine was her mom, from the very beginning, and then she's like, oh, hi, Mom. And then we all know that, oh, Janine is her mom. That means that her and Egon must have hooked up. Maybe after Ghostbusters 2, since, once again, Ghostbusters 2 is officially canon, because in Ghostbusters 2, you have Janine and Louis hooking up. And maybe she's still with Louis. Maybe that'll be fleshed out in the future if they ever bring back Rick Moranis. But, yeah, I do say that if they had, cut a few of the characters off, it would have been more time to give to Phoebe. I mean, Phoebe did get a lot of time. A bit more time for Paul Rudd. And look, I love Paul Rudd. I think he's awesome in everything he does. He was okay in Frozen Empire. I'm not really feeling the chemistry between him and Phoebe's mom. I think it's Callie. Is that right? Is her mom's name Callie? If I get it wrong, I get it wrong. The new characters, the Fire Master, I don't know if that was really necessary to give him more time. Or Lars. Lars was okay. I mean, I kind of get that we kind of need like a new Egon besides Phoebe, somebody that's working with Winston to build new stuff, new toys for the Ghostbusters. Meanwhile, they're still using Ecto-1 and they're having issues with Ecto-1 at the beginning of the movie. You think that the first thing that Winston would have done is brought in like a top-notch mechanic to completely rebuild Ecto-1's engine and everything and get it up and running and just working because it's like a 1950s ambulance. I love Ecto 1, okay? But yeah, Winston should have spent some money to fix that thing up before he sent the new Ghostbusters off into New York. And that's another thing, is that they've been doing this for 3 years. And only now does somebody like get angry that there's a kid working with the Ghostbusters, an underage kid, because Phoebe's an underage kid. She's a teenager, but she's obviously a prodigy, just like her grandfather was. And she really wants to be a Ghostbuster. But at the beginning of the film, some damage is caused, typical of the Ghostbusters. The mayor, who is now Peck, so somehow Peck goes from being in the EPA in the 80s to being mayor decades later. I wish they'd explain that one to us, but okay. William Atherton is back as the mayor. That's okay. And I guess he was a little bit... He still dislikes the Ghostbusters, but you can tell, I guess, him being older, he's not as much of a hard ass about it as he once was, because he actually does give the Ghostbusters a chance. He doesn't just shut them down right away. He's like, okay, look, I will shut you all down if your daughter continues to be a Ghostbuster. She's underage. This is against the law. So from his point of view, I do understand that. He's still an asshole, though. But to be fair, so is Venkman. It's just that Venkman was a more lovable asshole, so that when two assholes go head to head, bad things, happened, just like in the first movie. But yeah, so it was cool to see Peck back as mayor of New York. But I think that the issue is, as mayor, millions and millions of people you're representing. One of the largest cities in the U.S. and in the world. So there's a lot of other things going on than you having to worry about the Ghostbusters. And I think it's just the damage done to their latest outing would have, I guess, met his attention. And they unfortunately went a little bit above his radar that one time. So I do understand Phoebe's frustration. They do have, I guess, kind of a friendship. Some people were complaining about kind of a love interest between her and a female ghost. I don't really care about that. I mean, people are straight, people are gay, lesbian, bi, doesn't really matter to me. And they didn't really go too far with it. You could have just said that they were just friendly, or you could go either way. So they didn't go overboard with that. The ghost character, I think her name was Melody. She was okay. I think there's a scene where it could have been cut out, where she's walking down the street and she's having a conversation with Garaka. You hear Garaka's ancient tongue in the background. That scene should have been cut out, because that takes away from the plot twist that she was working with Garaka, or being forced to work with Garaka. So I think that scene should have been yeeted out of the movie. It should have been chopped out and put on the editing floor. And I would have been in favor of some other scenes instead between the other characters, or maybe some other ghost busting happening as well. So yeah, I think that scene could have been yeeted. What else? Yeah, I like the fact that you have interactions with Ray. Ray gets more time, and he gets some time with Phoebe. And look, I'm not the biggest Pat Oswalt fan. I thought he did okay in this film. I thought he was fine as the one other library guy that was explaining Garaka. The animation scene, I don't think was necessary, but it was all right to establish what the antagonist was. And I'm not a fan of Garaka. I'll talk about that in a moment. But there was definitely too much nostalgia bait. You had the librarian in there. She did a quick jump scare on Ray. You had one of the lions brought to life by another antagonist ghost. What is it? The Possessor. So that was an interesting character, the Possessor. I like the Possessor. I like the fact they brought back Slimer, but they should have known that Slimer was already in the firehouse in the attic, because they've been living there for 3 years. So why is it a shock to Trevor and them that they have a resident ghost? And I feel like Ray should have explained to them, Ray and Winston, that, hey, we do have a ghost on the premises. He's Slimer. He's harmless. He just likes to eat. So I think that there was no need for this scare factor between Trevor and Slimer, because 3 years later, I mean, between now and then, you should have ran into Slimer. I mean, Venkman ran into Slimer rather quickly at the Sedgwick, along with everyone else. It didn't take long for the Ghostbusters to find Slimer back then. So Yeah. I mean, I get it. Slimer is kind of like trying to have a low profile, hiding under like a whole bunch of like wrappers of food and snacks. But that part was, it could have been worked a little bit better. But still, I like seeing Slimer. That was kind of cool. Let's see what else. Oh yeah. So this whole thing was very very contrived. Whereas in like Ghostbusters, the first movie, Gozer was already doing its thing. Evil Shandor set things in motion a century prior. Well, not a century prior by that, like 70 years prior, I guess, if the calculation's off. Oh well. And Gozer was already doing Gozer's thing, right? Preparing to re-enter the world and wreak havoc and destruction. The Ghostbusters just happened to be getting in Gozer's way. Now, when it came to Vigo, Vigo was also doing his own thing. He possessed the dude at the art gallery, and the dude at the art gallery was serving Vigo's purposes along with the river of slime. And in the end, the Ghostbusters, they collided. These were external threats. I don't entirely blame the Ghostbusters for what happened with Gozer or Vigo. But with Garaka, I feel like this was their fault because you had the Firemaster dude whose grandma was a Firemaster. And I guess she didn't tell him about being a Firemaster, or else she told him and he just wasn't paying attention. And so he decides to start selling, some of his grandma's stuff, including this big copper brass ball with ancient writing on it. And the moment that Ray reads it with the PKE meter, that should have been like a major alarm bell for Ray. Because, I mean, it literally, I think it broke the PKE meter. It was so bad. Like, this is very, very bad, Ray. Maybe put this thing away, like in a vault somewhere where nobody can get to it. Don't play with it. Like, don't touch it. Don't use some of the new toys, Lars and Winston and Phoebe and Lucky at your new facility to experiment with the creepy ball from ancient times with the dead ancient writing on it that's with the PKE meter going off the charts. That was kind of the first warning that maybe you should have left well enough alone. Especially, after Ray and Phoebe and Podcast went to the library to talk to Pat Oswalt's character. By the way, they brought back, I think, the actor that played, I don't think he was a librarian, but he was like the head of the library in the first movie. So that was kind of a cool cameo. But yeah, I mean, you had enough information established, especially with the flashback at the beginning, where the hunters or the guys that were going around and like stealing artifacts, rich guys, and they ended up all like frozen to death in a room when the fire team came in from the firehouse before it eventually became the Ghostbusters headquarters back in a century ago. That was kind of an interesting scene. So you had enough warning to establish that the ancient brass copper ball was very, very bad news. And all you had to do was put it away somewhere where nobody could get it. Not sit out there to where it could potentially be unlocked so that the bad baddie could escape. Garaka. And somehow Garaka's horns also has survived the past thousands of years in this one room, the brass hidden room of the Fire Master's grandma. But the relationship between Phoebe and the ghost, I thought it was okay, but it was also contrived a bit because of that entire scene. I think that should have been edited out of the movie, because up until that point, you would have just thought that, hey, these two are just, obviously they have, a connection between these two, Phoebe and Melody. And not until the very, moment when Phoebe decides for some reason that she wants to not really kill herself, but to pull her spirit out of her body with the machine that was pulling all these possessed items, like ghosts out of the possessed items that Lars created. Well, Lars and I guess his team under Winston. And she did it for 2 minutes. But we already knew at that point that Melody was going to do something bad along with Garaka. And it would have just been an interesting plot twist right there. Like, when she says I'm sorry, then the audience would have been like, sorry for what? You would have been caught off guard just as much as Phoebe. Well, most people. Maybe a lot of people would have saw it coming from like a river of slime away. But yeah, the moment that Garaka possesses her, her body in order to do his like ancient talk, that unlocks the ball because the ghost can't do it. Only the living, I guess, their words are the only ones that can unlock it. He should have been done right there. He should have been cooked because Lucky comes into the lab, right, with a proton pack and a trap. And bear in mind, the way that Garaka was trapped like thousands of years ago was with the Fire Masters, which were pyrokinetic. They had the ability to use fire and use fire to contain the Garaka and then put Garaka in the ancient copper brass ball. So fire is pretty hot. You know what's hotter than fire? The proton pack, a nuclear accelerator. The stream from the proton packs burn way hotter than fire. So right then and there at that very moment, Garaka should have been screwed. Lucky would have caught Garaka with the stream, trapped him long enough to throw down the trap and suck his ass into the trap, which is far more advanced than the copper brass ball. So Garaka should have been done right then and there. Plus, bear this in mind, Garaka wasn't at full power. Garaka didn't even have his horns yet. He had to go get his horns from Firemaster's apartment. So right there, it was Jover. It was by done for Garaka. But now, plot, convenience, he freezes the stream. Which, like I said, makes no freaking sense because, yeah, technically the proton packs should be way more efficient than somebody wielding like a pyrokinetic ability, which is cool, by the way. That is cool. Well, not the opposite of cool. But, yeah, that should have been the same thing, right? Where it does just the same job, but better than a Fire Master. But anyways, this allows Garaka to escape. And he leaves Lucky alive for plot convenience. And Phoebe's left alive for plot convenience. I guess her spirit does go back into her body after 2 minutes. And then he ends up working his way to like a convenience store, and some random dude that works at this lighter store or vape store or whatever. He's asked, "Are you the Fire Master?" And of course that's like, I guess that's a playback to "Are you the Keymaster" from the original movie and from Afterlife, because they went back to the well in that one. So he freezes this poor dude to death, and I think that's the only dude that gets killed on screen by Garaka in present day, excluding all the guys that got killed in the past, right? So Garaka gets his horns, and then you have the scene from the trailer where they're all at the beach having a good time because it's in the summertime, it's hot, and then you have the storm come in, you have the ice spikes. But I was watching it with my fiance Riley, and I did not see one person game ended by the ice spikes. I didn't. So somehow, either the citizens that were unfortunately game ended by the ice spikes, that happened to them off screen, because this is a PG-13 film, I get that. Or B, somehow the ice spikes missed everybody and nobody was hurt. Not even like hurt, are killed by the ice spikes, and they were just all over the beach, and they're spreading all over the place. And so there's now a final stand between all the Ghostbusters, the new ones and the old ones. They're still alive, and Garaka and the Possessor and a few other ghosts. And it comes down to using the proton packs, trying to get the Fire Master to rekindle his ability that he has, that he didn't realize he had, because it's passed on, I guess, by bloodline. And melting a whole bunch of brass, copper. I forgot, was it? I think they had copper, but Janine said that vagrants had stripped the firehouse of any copper, but there was brass. But okay. Anyways, they're melting all the brass, and they take apart, I think, Phoebe's proton pack, and then somehow that unintentionally like makes her proton pack capable of eventually taking on Garaka single-handedly. Because Garaka basically takes out all the Ghostbusters. Doesn't kill them, by the way. Just takes out the streams and basically all but freezes them to death. They're all screwed, except for Phoebe. well, Phoebe and her ghost friend, Melody. Because Melody, she burned to death by accident. She accidentally killed her family and herself with the light. And so, like, throughout her life, she's kind of carried around this matchbook, and she's been burning through the matches, and she only has like one match left, which ends up being used at the end of the movie. And so Phoebe, like, shows up, because she was downstairs with Melody, trying to convince Melody to help her, because the containment unit once again has been breached and all the ghosts are going everywhere. And oh yeah, there's a new containment unit that Winston has built that is like way larger than the original containment unit because it's been filled to the brim with ghosts. So the idea is to eventually transfer all the ghosts to the new containment unit at the new facility, and it'd be like the size of the Wild West. So it's much, much larger, which means more ghosts can be put into the new containment unit. But the old containment unit is busted, and I think they used the brass to like repair the. I don't know what they used all the melted brass, because they melted it. Maybe they used it to repair the containment unit, or maybe there's a seam missing, or maybe I'm missing it. But anyways, Phoebe comes upstairs, sees everybody's frozen, like the old Ghostbusters, including Janine, who has one of the hand proton packs, because there was hand proton packs being experimented on by Lucky and Lars, and then the original proton pack. So everybody has a proton pack. Winston, Ray, Bill Murray, Venkman, they all suit up along with Janine, and Paul Rudd and Callie and Trevor, Lucky, and I think Lars gets slimed by one of the other ghosts. So yeah, they're all frozen. It seems like it's over, and Garaka has won. But then Phoebe shows up, and because her proton pack is busted open in the back, it emits a different kind of stream, like a red and green stream, and that stream is able to contain Garaka, but the regular streams can't. Doesn't make sense to me, but science and sci-fi. But this is the motivating factor for Melody because all she wants to do is pass over to the other side to be reunited with her family, and that's why she made the deal with Garaka. But she obviously cares about Phoebe. She doesn't want anything bad to happen to Phoebe or the rest of the Ghostbusters or humanity, I guess. She doesn't want Garaka to do this horrible thing. And so I guess she has a 180 in character development. She has one match left. And while Garaka's focused on Phoebe, Melody lights the final match she has. And the final match goes to the Firemaster, who now has on the brass copper suit that his grandma and previous Firemasters wore. And he's able to use the fire to help contain Garaka, along with Phoebe's broken proton pack. Okay? And that buys Winston, Ray, Venkman, and Janine time, because they unfreeze just enough to where they three go downstairs, and you have Paul Rudd, you have Callie, I think you have Lucky, and you have Trevor helping Phoebe hold her stream. Just hold it, stabilize it to keep it on Garaka along with the Firemaster, so they can contain him long enough to where he can be sucked back into the old containment unit by Winston, Ray, Venkman, and Janine, because they all have to do it together, team effort. And so despite the fact the city's frozen, they managed to capture Garaka. All the other ghosts are still loose, and Peck shows up at the end, and Peck is really about to get him, because previously in the film they destroyed one of the here's the thing. There's this bike. I think it was Ecto C. Ray had this other Ecto bike, which is like one of those motorcycles with like a side buggy. And it also has a built-in proton pack. And when the possessor took one of the lions, I think it was Fortitude, because there's two lions at the library. You see them at the very beginning of the original Ghostbusters film. And if you ever go by the New York library, I've been by there once. It's really cool. The lions are definitely bigger than they look on TV. Well, on film. And one of them comes to life thanks to the possessor and is about to, I guess, numb Ray. But Phoebe previously, destroys the lion, but gets her in a little bit of trouble with the mayor. Because, hey, why did you destroy Fortitude? Okay, and he's like, that's it. I'm shutting you all down. I've had it with you all. I've been wanting to do this for 40 years. The Ghostbusters are finished. So he takes their proton packs, the old proton packs, except for Phoebe's. I guess that's why. Because the proton packs that come in with Lars in the van are newer proton packs. So I guess maybe because hers is one of the OG proton packs is why that one's special. I don't know. But yeah, so he tries to condemn the building again. But, Phoebe breaks the lock later that night. And, well, I know this is going backwards. But anyways, it's like the police don't care. It's like there's police tape everywhere. But it's like the cops are like, whatever. Like Peck told us to do this. The mayor told us to do this. But, we'll do it. But if the Ghostbusters break back into their firehouse, then we're not going to go arrest them. So I guess the NYPD don't really have much respect for their mayor. So, yeah, going back to the ending of the movie, of course, Peck is mad at first. And he's like, I'm going to get y'all this time. But then he notices that everyone's praising the Ghostbusters. What a shock, right? I mean, they were praising the Ghostbusters at the end of the first film when he had a whole bunch of Stay Puft goo dumped on him. That was hilarious. But so Peck, being the mayor, politician, realizes that public support is with the Ghostbusters now more than ever, and so he has to kind of like, yeah, okay. He starts acting friendly at the end, even though he deep down inside despises the Ghostbusters. He knows that he kind of has to bend to the will of the people of New York. So yeah, that's how the film ends. Like I said, overall it was okay. Oh yeah, there's an extra scene at the end where a Stay Puft trucker, he's, I guess, is he at an ATM machine or something? He's at a gas station getting some money out of an ATM machine, and there happens to be some of the mini puffs. They steal his truck and they drive away. Look, the mini puffs were cute in Afterlife, and they are connected with Gozer, so it made sense for the mini puffs to be around in Afterlife. They just brought it back. I mean, them back because of the cute factor and the merchandising. I don't think that they should have brought back the mini puffs. So I think that's the last thing I was going to say. And yeah, apparently one of the ideas for another Ghostbusters movie, because Frozen Empire, despite the fact it got average ratings at best, it did make enough money to merit another film or a continuation of the franchise. One of the ideas that's floating around is focusing on the mini puffs. Why? Are you just trying to create your own version of the Minions? No, please don't do that. I would like going forward, I guess to wrap up, what would I like to see in the next Ghostbusters movie? I don't have a problem with the OG Ghostbusters passing the torch. I never had a problem with that. The reason why I took issue in 2016 is because they wanted to completely reboot the franchise and forget about the original Ghostbusters until one of the misleading trailers came out, which was not part of that story. They did it in the trailer to try to hook you into going to watch the film as a Ghostbusters fan. But by that point, most of us were aware of the fact that it was a complete reboot. Yeah, they brought in Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray and Annie Potts and even Sigourney Weaver for cameos as different characters, in order to try and appease to the Ghostbusters fan base. But that was not enough. I don't have an issue with female Ghostbusters, not at all. I mean, I think there were female Ghostbusters in Extreme Ghostbusters. Like, I never watched it, but I think there were. But anyways, it's just the way they just decided to just wipe it out of existence. If it would have continued years after the events of Ghostbusters 2, similar to Afterlife, and still honored the legacy of the original Ghostbusters and the world they built, then I think less people would have had a problem with it. But the writing wasn't that good either for 2016. But going back to Frozen Empire. Frozen Empire was not as good as Afterlife. Afterlife was not as good as Ghostbusters 2. And easily the best of the Ghostbuster films is the original Ghostbusters. We've established this. I do wish that we had fleshed out the backgrounds of the characters a bit more. Like, does Winston have a family? Does Janine have a family? Does Ray have somebody? Or did he have somebody? Like, do these characters also have children? Like, surely Winston, who's become a billionaire, surely he married and had a kid or some kids. So it would be nice to have them involved. along with, I guess, Oscar, like, because Dana, Dana has Oscar. And it is implied, I guess, that after Ghostbusters 2, Venkman and Dana did end up back together and probably raised Oscar as their son, even though Venkman's obviously Oscar's stepdad. Why not bring back Oscar? That's an idea for the next movie. But yeah, I would like to see a bit more like character fleshing out for Ray. I mean, I can't imagine Ray just sitting in Ray's occult for the past several decades and that's it, except for Winston visiting him every now and then and helping to keep his shop running behind the scenes, financially. Janine, like, if they would have established Janine as Callie's mom and Venkman's wife or baby mama, then that would have been, at least that would have connected Janine with this other Spanglers, with Callie and with Phoebe. But it really did feel like Janine was just there, which is unfortunate because I think that she should have had a bit more time in the movie. But it was nice to see her brought back because I do like Janine. In fact, I've named several of my female characters from GT Online to Red Dead Online, everywhere in between, Janine, in honor of Janine from Ghostbusters 1 and 2, played by the lovely Annie Potts. So, yeah, going forward with the next Ghostbusters movie, what would I do as a fan? I think that one of the big mistakes that they made in Afterlife is, even though I do really like J.K. Simmons, I think that them having Ivo Shandor as a cameo in Afterlife, he was like in this stasis coffin, and then he comes back to life just to be killed by Gozer when Gozer's resurrected. I think that was a huge mistake. And one thing that now this is a spoiler, Ivo Shandor is the main antagonist of Ghostbusters, the video game. I thought they did a good job with it. So, yeah, small spoiler. But it connects to the first movie very well. And there's also connections to Ghostbusters 2. But mostly Ghostbusters 1. But yeah, I'd highly recommend you check out the video game. Ghostbusters video game. Still good to this day. And it is backwards compatible on Xbox One, Xbox Series. Especially if you have the 360 version like I have. See. But yeah, I think that's a missed opportunity. They should have not included Ivo Shandor in Afterlife because they could have done something similar. They could have just taken the idea of Ghostbusters, the video game, and made that a future story. I still kind of wish that Ghostbusters, the video game, was canon, but I understand why it's not. Just like I understand why the real Ghostbusters is not canon. It exists, for our enjoyment, but it's not part of the main Ghostbusters universe, which at the moment is Ghostbusters 1, 2, along with Afterlife, Frozen Empire. Maybe Spirits Unleashed. I don't know if that is. Is it? I know Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd are in it, but I don't know if that is technically considered to be canon to this current Ghostbusters verse. But yeah, I don't know what direction the Ghostbusters could go forward. I feel like Phoebe is important, so I think that Phoebe should be in the next film. Winston, because Winston, is the head of the Ghostbusters now because he owns the Ghostbusters. And Ray should be there. Venkman might show up for 5-10 minutes like he did. I would like, once again, more time with Janine. Paul Rudd's character, Callie's character, I don't know if I really would want them to return. I think I'm okay with Lars coming back. Maybe, like I said, maybe bring in maybe a son or daughter of Winston. That would be cool. Maybe our grandson or granddaughter. And it would be cool if Ray maybe met somebody and had a kid, Maybe it didn't work out, but it'd be nice if Ray at least had one child out there. That'd be cool. But it doesn't necessarily mean he has to have a child. And it is unfortunate that Janine, as far as we know, they still have the possibility of Janine and Louis being together, and maybe they had a kid. So maybe there's a younger Louis Tully that could join the Ghostbusters. That's not as dorky as his dad. I don't know, or maybe a daughter. But yeah, a passing the torch would be fine as long as they continue to honor the Ghostbusters legacy and they continue to have the OG Ghostbusters. And that was one thing that I did agree with Winston on, is the fact that they're not getting any younger. And despite that, how much Ray loves this whole thing, the paranormal, being, going after ghosts, studying ghosts, getting out there in the field, not just sitting, back, at Ray's occult and just being an advisor. I understand Ray's passion because he's had it ever since, the beginning of the first film, even before the first film. But Winston is right. They're not getting any younger, and they have to enjoy their quote-unquote golden years, but they can still be part of what the Ghostbusters are trying to do. So I do understand that completely. So yeah, I hope that the next Ghostbusters movie is good. I just think that the mini puffs should just be pushed aside. Maybe make it an animated series following the mini puffs, like this Despicable Me or the Minions or whatever those things are. But yeah, I think that's the way they should go with the next Ghostbusters film. I'm totally fine with Phoebe Spangler. I don't care if she turns out to be a lesbian. That doesn't bother me one way or the other, because there are people in this world that are straight, bi, gay, lesbian. Doesn't matter to me. As long as it's good characters, good story, and it feels like a Ghostbusters film. I think that they need to really get it back to a balance of scary, at the same time, funny, some good moments, and less characters, because that was a huge issue I had with this film, along with the antagonist. I don't know what they could do with the next antagonist. I mean, hopefully they come up with something clever and creative. Maybe something up to the level of Gozer or Vigo, because obviously Gozer's S tier antagonist, Vigo's A tier, Garaka's not up there at all, especially with the fact that there are several ways that Garaka could have been easily stopped by putting that ball away somewhere safe in a vault. I'm sure Winston had a vault somewhere to put that ball, lock it up so that no one could get to it. And also the fact that proton packs the beam, the stream, way, way hotter than fire. I'm just saying. So yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about Frozen Empire, and how I rank it with the other Ghostbusters, I guess, properties that I included. Once again, the original Ghostbusters film, S tier, my favorite Ghostbusters movie, and my favorite movie of all time. Then Ghostbusters 2, Ghostbusters the video game. I'm going to put that number 3, because there was a time I considered that part of that trilogy until it got decanonized in favor of Afterlife and now Frozen Empire. So you got the video game, then you got the real Ghostbusters cartoon series, and then you have Afterlife, Frozen Empire, and once again, at the very bottom of the River of Slime, the 2016 film. Your thoughts, views, and opinions regarding Frozen Empire, as well as the rest of the Ghostbusters franchise, and what do you think they should do with the next Ghostbusters film? Welcome, as always, below in the comments section.